God. What do you do?
Apparently, OBS decided to fuck me.
I was fucking kidding!
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. We went through a whole spiel, and OBS didn't pick it the fuck up. So once again, welcome to GeekWatch. I am Mildra. He's Akira. He's John. He's Rick. We're all pissed. I am
Everything until now has been muted.
because apparently OBS didn't pick it up, and it's not like I'm looking at OBS constantly while I'm looking through my notes.
This is why I decided to go the route of local recording as well when I do my streams.
I think I ended up having the exact same problem that Lady K had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's the smart thing to do is to make sure to check your audio levels before you go live. But there's so much you're trying to prep up during that time. It's very easy to forget. I'm not gonna fault you for it. Yeah. I've done it so many fucking times.
I think what happened is I had checked for the Monastery Live scene collection. I may have not for GeekWatch because I figured it'd be universal.
No, never assume. Never make assumptions. It makes an ass out of you and assumptions.
Yeah. Now, even with my anger, I should note that I am still happy to have reached 2,000 subs, as I mentioned before. This does mean that I'm going to have to review Traveler 5.1. That review is still going to be a few days out because I have to do a recap of Traveler's history, and this time do it right. I screwed up a few times the last time, but when you're dealing with a game that's been around since the 70s, I think I can be forgiven for a few errors. Now, that being said, when it comes to the trial of Yasuko Kobayashi, which we had a really nice bit of me acting as a bailiff and a bit of Stone Cold as the judge, referencing Dilbert.
Order the court.
But this is a topic that we've had in the back burner for about a year. We did an initial recording, and this was back during when I was doing these as recordings and not streams because of tech issues. But everything was going wrong with it, so we decided we'd shelve it and come back to it another time. One year later. Jinx.
John, you owe him a Coke.
Bitch, please, I drink root beer.
Besides, Lady K has all the Coke in this house. I ain't got shit.
Doesn't matter, you still owe him a Barks.
Unless there's a better local root beer in your part of Florida, I'll take Barks. If you gave me something like Mug, I'd ask Lady K to hit you with the book.
No, I wouldn't even dream of it.
Who even likes Mug? Seriously, it's trash.
Communists.
Pepsi enthusiasts.
But enough about a former AEW wrestler.
Oh!
Damn.
I told you I'm an equal opportunity offender. But
Weren't he only one?
And truth be told, there were a few times where I had put it on the schedule, but for some reason the energy just wasn't there. And I kept putting it off, and as we're coming to the end of the year, and I'm coming off of my 5-year anniversary of doing both podcasts and doing interviews. Way too many interviews. I did, as I've told the guys here before we went live, I did 2 interviews today, and I had done 2 interviews yesterday. And that's
this man has an infinite battery supply. I swear to God, people, I don't know how he fucking does it.
Hey, John.
let's face it. For all we know, he has the Energizer Bunny hooked up somewhere, and he's just making some kind of drink from the energies of that rabbit.
I
He
wouldn't
keeps
doubt it.
going and going and going and
Actually, you
going.
want to know the secret?
What?
I take a slice of toast. I put peanut butter on one slice. I hook that slice up to a cat. I pick up the cat, I drop it, then I hook that cat up to a generator. Because remember, a cat always lands on its feet, but the toast is always supposed to land peanut butter side down.
Holy shit! Forget I asked.
So it just keeps spinning, and I can just hook that up to a generator and give myself
Perpetual motion engine.
Yep.
Fluffy, no!
But putting that aside, I figured now was as good a time as any to finally tackle this topic. And yes, does this? I know somebody might say two breakdowns of anime writers in a row, Monk. What happened, man? You used to be cool, bitch. I was never cool. I was frosty.
There is a difference.
No, you got to pull the old Carlin line. He ain't cool. He fucking Chili, and Chili ain't never been cool.
But this is one this is one that I've had on the back burner, and with Urobuchi, the big focus was celebrating their work, but with Yasuko Kobayashi, things get a little bit complicated, and I felt that made it prime material for us here on GeekWatch. Hence, why we went with the gag of the trial of Yasuko Kobayashi, and why I specifically I remember when I was asking you to set up the splash screen for it, I specifically asked if you could get the courtroom art from Phoenix Wright.
And I am never one to disappoint my friend.
Mm-hmm. But Yasuko Kobayashi is a writer who's worked on a large amount of work, ranging from tokusatsu to anime. I would say and when I say a lot, I mean quite a bit.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to 1993. She cut her teeth in the Metal Heroes era, which is another thing that can be a future GeekWatch topic. If I can find enough subs of some of the material, because I think there's still a good chunk of the Metal Heroes series that has not been translated.
Yeah, a lot of the lesser-known series out there, I don't think have been translated yet, or at least have only been recently translated. I know, you can find like Gavan and Scheider and Sheravan. Anything that was already adapted is probably already subbed, but stuff like
E-SWAT,
Winspector and Blue SWAT,
yep,
and John Person probably is a little harder to find.
I'm surprised I haven't been able to find stuff with Jiraiya, but from what I've heard, Jiraiya is weird.
I've actually, I thought I was able to find a fair bit with Jiraiya, but I was like halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving on.
But yeah, her first was actually John Person all the way back in 1993. In fact, when it comes to the Metal Hero stuff that she had worked on, it was John Person, which I can't say without hearing "Fights for Justice" in the back of my head.
Easy knows your pain.
That was a funny toka riffs.
Blue SWAT, which is the least. I'd say Blue SWAT is the least Metal Hero of all the Metal Hero series. Like if I didn't know any better, I'd say it was another cop show that you would have seen in the 70s.
Isn't that no? I can't say.
And of course, Juko B-Fighter and B-Fighter Kabuto,
which you American fans might know as the Japanese footage used for Big Bad Beetleborgs.
Mm-hmm.
From there,
From there, we have stuff like Mega Ranger, which became In Space when it was brought stateside and was the subject of one of the more infamous miscommunications. Because for those who don't know, Turbo set things up with the at the end with the shuttle because they figured they were going to be going into space, but this was due to a issue in either translation or communication because Mega Ranger was a device-themed series, not a space-themed one. So Saban, figuring that this was going to be the last one, decided, fuck it, we'll just do the space stuff ourselves.
And to be fair, the mechs worked for that. They got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, for the most part, they got away with the adaptation. I think like very few times it failed.
Yeah. But then after that there was Gingaman, which became Lost Galaxy, and that is a interesting beast.
We should note that Gigaman is one of the first roles she was like the head writer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. From there, she wouldn't really be one until like a couple years later, where she had to do two at the same time.
Because I believe you're referring to doing work on Time Ranger and Agito.
Time Ranger, Agito, but I was also looking at. I'm also looking at her anime side, and there's Dinosaurs at 2000, where she was the head writer on.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, she's also the head writer for Guxen, and that explains a lot on why that anime tanked.
Yeah, but also being involved with the live action Sailor Moon, being involved with Ryuki, which we've talked about when we did the Ryuki reconstruction.
Oh yeah.
Doing a bit of work on Bokenger, doing a lot more work on Kamen Rider Deno, also known as Zombie Rider, because it won't go the fuck away.
Yeah. Deno is probably the series that, I would say, for most fans, put her on the map.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything else, because it's the one series that she was the sole head writer, and it is, like you said, it's the zombie series that just won't fucking go away.
Mm-hmm.
John, the peach train is outside the window again.
God, just give him some pudding and he'll finally leave.
I would. However, he rated it last night.
Mm-hmm.
While I was not here.
Yeah.
God damn it, Momotaro.
Quick, someone give me a cute dog.
Doing some work on Decade, but clearly not the head writer. I'm pretty sure Decade would have had a few more episodes if that was the case.
Among other things.
Shinkenger, O's, doing some stuff for Makai Senki, which had a jumping after Wikolas situation. Like Makai Senki is not bad. It's just that it had to follow up on what came before.
Yeah.
Go Busters, which Go Busters I think had a run of bad luck.
It really did.
Yeah, the sub and everything it is well done. I think it's just such a departure in a way that
that's not
Japanese
what I mean by bad luck. It's the fact that right around the you're dealing with a story that involves a new form of energy right around the time the Fukushima disaster happens.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Yep.
This isn't the first time that a Sentai series would have that kind of bad luck. Looking at you, O Ranger.
Yep.
Yeah, but that one happened during its run time. While the Go Buster, for all intents and purposes, this happened after the Fukushima incident.
That's whether it's before, during, or after. It's still unfortunate timing.
Yeah, even if it happened before, it probably happened during production, which probably caused some problems.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue with that, but let's say on the rails.
Yeah. And now, of course, some work on Zero Black Blood, which was all right. Um, then Tokuger, which I'll have some things to say about Tokuger later.
Oh, you and me both. You and me both.
Amazons,
Oh, yeah.
which I will note we will be covering Amazons in more detail in the future because I do want to contrast it with Black Sun. And more recently working on the live action adaptation of Thus Spoke Rohan Kishibe.
But then we also have
no, that's the JoJo Part 4 spinoff.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also have her anime work, which up until I would say definitely around 2012, not much big names, so to speak. But then 2012, we had the original, we had JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and then following that, Attack on Titan. And from there, some pretty big names, mostly with those franchises, though.
Though it's not like on the anime end of things she was working on scrub material, because there are some names that I am very familiar with in that list, whether it be
Same here.
whether it be one of the Guyver anime, and I say one of because that's been tackled several times. Shakugan no Shana, which did have a bit of a splash at the time.
I love that show. I love that Shauna.
Mm-hmm. Witchblade, which is amusing to me, and I actually approve of this decision. It is trying to not be an adaptation of the comic, but instead doing its own thing completely. Of course, Claymore in 2007, which I remember some people calling Claymore a poor man's Berserk. I don't feel that's fair, especially since Claymore, for all intents and purposes, was still a shonen series. Berserk is a seinen series, and I don't think it's the only thing that they have in common is both being dark fantasy stories with characters with large swords. But large swords in anime, do you have the slightest idea how little that narrows it down?
Right?
Yeah.
But I'd say around 2008, things just go completely nuts. Where she ends up having a major writing role for several things from 2008 all the way through 2022. Because here's some of the names that are involved in that. Casher and Sins, the final season of Shakugan no Shana, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, most of Attack on Titan, Garo the Carved Seal of Flames, Stardust Crusaders, Diamond is Unbreakable, both seasons of Kakegurui, Golden Wind, Dororo, and Stone Ocean. I think I think at one point she was doing 4 productions in the span of a year.
Yeah, between anime and toku. And you can understand why that caused a bit of burnout, which is probably why some of those shows suffered during that time.
Yeah, because when you're doing 4 in that space, it's not like doing multiple writing projects or even when you're doing multiple voice acting gigs, because you are far more involved.
Yeah. And she was doing, in 2014, she was doing Garo, the Carved Seal of Flames, Stardust Crusaders, Zero Black Blood, and Tokuger at the same time in that same year. That is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And something that I've had to hammer home to people is that novel, short story, light novel writing, that is not the same as writing screenplays, which is effectively what she was doing. Writing a screenplay, you have to be far more hands-on And as I mentioned when I was talking with Rabbit last Tuesday, time is your enemy. Like, you have to be a miser for every single bit of time, because you're working in, let's say, 30-minute blocks at most. You're not getting any more time than that. And when I say 30 minutes, it's more like 25.
If that, yeah.
And there are a lot of recurring. I'd say there's a lot more consistency in the recurring motifs that Kobayashi has. But it is one of those cases where whenever she puts in her personal beliefs is when problems tend to happen. And I'd say I will give credit for the fact that that when it comes to playing certain motifs straight, she tends to not do that. As well as understanding the value of Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
I mean, there's usually within a lot of the Sentai, I'd say she tends to have everybody from different backgrounds. I'd say this was really apparent in, say, Shinkenger, where at the start everybody barely knew each other.
At the same time, it also makes sense in a way when you look at the idea of these were just civilians who who instantly were taken out of their lives to uphold family tradition. And I think like if you would put that in the time, or at least the idea of what they're trying to represent with that, it would happen even in the olden days. For it, so.
There is there are some bits of controversies regarding some of her approaches to traditions. I'd say one of the early examples of that was some of the stuff that was done that was very non-standard during Kamen Rider Ryuki, and she has gotten some shit for that. But I will say that she's only one part of the equation if we're going to be casting blame. Because
it's well documented that Ryuki was a co-op job. She was not the only person in the writer room in that series, and Toshiki Inoue, her co-writer of that series, those two had very conflicting ideals and mindsets and thought processes. And it was very apparent in the way that series was written how much those two ideals clashed.
And I've stated in the past that, and actually we had talked about this when we did the reconstruction of Ryuki, that when that barrier got dropped, there wasn't really a general direction that they knew where to go going forward, which is why you have a lot of drifting throughout the Heisei era from especially in series like Phase and Blade. And I'd say and we agreed that it wasn't until Double that a direction was started to assert itself. And I know we're repeating things that we had said during the Riku Sanjo episode, but that is a factor. Apparently, some of that back and forth and a lot of that drama almost got Kamen Rider canceled. But
we'd be having a very different episode tonight if things had gone differently. We'd be talking about how Yasuko Kobayashi could have been the killer of Kamen Rider, but thankfully we did not have that problem.
No, if there was anyone who almost tried to do it, it was Mr. Shirakura, because he wanted to end Kamen Rider after Agito, but TV Asahi overruled him. We've talked about that in the past. TV Asahi wanted to teach youth about justice after the 9/11 attacks.
Yeah. Well, I still say that I think a lot of people would have looked at Kobayashi that way. I don't think it would have been correct, but people would have thought that.
Well, like how people look at how wrestling fans look at Vince Russo.
Yeah.
And it is funny because that's not the first time I've made that comparison. Because John, I think you and I had noticed as time went on that a lot of the bad habits that she has as a writer don't manifest as much when she's writing anime because she's on a metaphorical leash.
Yeah, you're not going to see much of her writing style present in something like JoJo because Araraki's probably got a pretty tight leash on that series, making sure that it stays within the lane.
Mm-hmm.
So you watch a lot. You watch Attack on Titan. You watch JoJo. You watch Kashern Sins. You're not going to see a lot of that.
Nope.
Now, Kashern Sins is a different take on a story that's been told several times, but there's certain motifs that you have to stick to. Although I will maintain that more people should watch Kashern Sins in general.
I saw it when they aired it on Toonami way back in the day, when it first came, shortly after the reboot.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty good. I mean, I will say it's not the easiest watch. It's not a bad watch. It's just not the easiest watch.
Were you aware that the backgrounds for that anime were hand painted?
Makes sense given the style, the art style. I can believe it. Yeah, it looks great. It looks amazing, but it's not the like if you're expecting a fast-paced, high-action series, you're not gonna get that.
If you want that, go watch that weird-ass live-action take.
Oh god.
Oh my god. Oh god, no.
So
Coops. Calm down. No more PT. Don't have divisions.
Yeah, set your expectations accordingly for Kashern Sins, and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that, and I paid for it.
Yeah.
That was my own. Yeah, I deserve that. I made that mistake.
Yeah. The other thing to note is I think with a lot of the issues that happened, there were things that were questionable. You could have a love or hate relationship with some of it, but it wasn't until that Blitz period where she was just working on stuff constantly that a lot of her particular beliefs started to bleed into things. And I'd say the canary in the coal mine with this, to a certain extent, was O's.
A little bit, I'd say, yeah. Canary in the coal mine, yeah. I'd definitely say O's was the first sign of that. Now, that's not to say O's was a bad show. I don't want anyone to get that perception. O's was fantastic. It's probably one of her better works, easily. Probably one of her best, if I'm being truly honest.
Probably one of the best.
Yep.
But it is definitely a clear indication of her particular ideals and beliefs because it is blatantly present throughout much of that series.
I'd say especially once the purple metals start showing up. And the reason why I use the phrase "canary in a coal mine" is, well, because of how miners use canaries to determine when they were digging too deep in.
Actually, I'm going to use this for a sec, since we're on that topic, and there's some people who probably aren't familiar with it. Why don't we explain that part so we can catch at least the people who are unaware of? Because I believe I know what we're talking about with the referred canary in the coal mine, but for the others.
You talk about like you're asking why O's would be the canary?
Yeah, I would say more of, like, keeping her her personal beliefs, laying that ending up bleeding into the product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we could do that.
I think that's a good way to thing to focus on is she like Monk mentioned earlier, she's very much about traditions. She's very much in keeping with traditions, and you see, and not just in traditions as in events, but as in ideals, traditional values. While I wouldn't say she's a full-on conservative, fully, she definitely has a little more leanings in that direction with a lot of her characters.
Though, it should be noted that conservative in a North American sense is not exactly the same as conservative in a Japanese sense.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that, but yes.
And that certainly plays a part when it comes to the bad habits, with especially with the reason why I say it is that those elements were there, but it's one of those things where it'd be easy to overlook at the time. I'd say we only really started to notice it in hindsight after O's had finished. There's also,
if you really want to point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
One other thing that she seems to like doing is she seems to like having a nice guy as the protagonist, and then trying her absolute best to break down that nice guy or undermine the ideals of that nice guy. We definitely saw that with Shinji, and to be fair, Shinji was kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
And we also see this with O's.
Yeah, AG is like the nicest guy you will ever meet in your life.
Mm-hmm.
He's always wants to help out. His whole life is about helping people. It's his entire belief is always lend a hand out to those in need. And she definitely takes the time to break that down and show, to be fair, she does this, but she does it to show why that belief should still hold strong, because at the end, it's that ideal that helps him overcome a lot of the problems in the series. But she makes him, she challenges that ideal at every turn.
Mm-hmm. And the key, the key thing how this is represented with AG in O's has to do with the purple metals, and the fact that him having no desire is kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, it prevents him from getting tempted by Ankh or by any other of the yummies. But on the other hand, it's what ties into that void that was the reason he was becoming the dinosaur greed alongside Maki.
Yeah.
Because all of the dinosaur greeds and yummies don't have a specific desire except for the end, which I think is the reason why Putotira's form has ice powers.
That, and it's also a berserker form, because it's when you don't have a desire, it takes control and does that to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that need to save ends up becoming his desire once again at the end, which is why he's able to overcome it. Especially when Ankh is pretty much almost killed off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know how MJF has been doing the whole thing of being your scumbag.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think you can say that to an extent with Ankh. He is.
Oh, absolutely.
He is a selfish bastard as they come.
But we love him anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone, grab your ice pops and hold one out for Ankh.
Well, now thanks to the last movie, hold one out for AG.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everyone, grab your underwear.
No, I'm grabbing tomorrow's underwear. Get it right.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be ready.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was implying, but oh well.
But
Back on track.
the but even with all of that, um, it's the warning signs were a beneath the surface thing. However, when we got to Tokyuger, this is where it really started to manifest to a point where I not only did I get annoyed, but I especially got annoyed with the Versus movie. Tokyuger versus Kyoryuger.
Oh yeah.
Explain this
Happy
one.
glorious Dinosaur King.
So the first off, the big thing that Tokyuger is trying to go by thematically is imagination. However, the big problem is, for one, it doesn't seem to understand the concept. Two, another Tokusatsu show came out around the same time that had a better understanding of imagination. The Akiba Rangers.
Yeah, as much as they called it delusions, that was imagination.
Mm-hmm. Secondly, there is the fact that I don't know if there was some spite or not, but in that crossover, she seemed to go out of her way to make the Kyoryugers look like assholes.
I've heard from some like Deshinta that she has an issue with the past mentality of heroes like Sentai and Kamen Rider, and wants to try to change that ideal. And so someone like Riku Sanjo, who's definitely got more rooted in that classic mentality, probably irked her the wrong way. Plus, a lot of his particular writing style is hard to write past, because he did that whole, open-ended ending where, oh, there's a bigger bad out there somewhere, never meaning to actually have a bigger bad, just showing that the fight never is continuing on. She decided to turn around and end it.
Which is, especially since which is kind of amusing, considering the ending of O's she has, much like with a lot of her work, having a bittersweet but somewhat optimistic ending. O's still has the spirit of Ankh still following Eiji around. Like, i.e.,
Yeah.
Ankh's not completely dead.
Yeah, but the greed as a whole are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are completely gone. And aside from movies where they had to find a way to shoehorn them back in, that was it.
Yeah, I look at that as her not wanting to future-proof her work.
Yeah. Whereas Riku Sanjo absolutely tries to future-proof his stuff, and that's the contrast.
I'd say I do maintain that the biggest demonstration of her wanting to future-proof her work, or rather of Riku Sanjo wanting to future-proof his work, was the creation of Foundation X, even if Toei didn't take advantage of it.
Bunch of idiots.
Mm-hmm.
Won't get into that again, but...
That's a rant for another millennia.
But let's...
I do want to add that I don't think Kobayashi... I might be mistaken here, because Kobayashi did take advantage of Foundation X. She took that idea and ran with it. Look at Megamax.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it Megamax?
Yeah.
Let me double check which one.
Yeah, I think it was Megamax.
It was Megamax.
Yep.
Yeah, where Foundation X were the primary villains.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in Foundation X and it worked well.
But I suppose another case of not understanding what came before is the handling of your boy Shotaro in Movie War Core.
Yeah, there's a lot of mistakes done with Movie War Core, though I think Riku Sanjo actually was the one that handled most of that.
I will
I think he
maintain
was still
that
involved at that point.
I will maintain
because
that
I
the
don't
thing
see her on the-
that salvages Core is getting the origin story of Skull.
Yeah, I think that one was Riku Sanjo's work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
It was-
you can't, and if you can't, and Kobayashi Kobayashi has no blame in that at all because Oza's part wasn't done by Kobayashi either.
Yeah, she has no credits to that.
No. You know who they got to do the O's part of the movie War Core?
It's my whipping boy, isn't it?
Fucking Eno.
Okay, Eno's not exactly my whipping boy. I mean, I have a mixed attitude on him, but a lot of my issues with him aren't necessarily his fault because I've seen what happens when he's off the leash.
Yeah, but here's my point, though. Here's my real point. We just mentioned earlier when we were talking about Ryuki that those two have very clashing ideals, and they clearly don't get along very well. Mm-hmm. Why would you have the writer that hates her do her movie?
It definitely feels like Eno around that time was the in case of emergency break glass button.
Yeah, except this time instead of actually grabbing the fire extinguisher, he grabbed the gas can.
God
damn
it!
Worse.
Yeah, but the reason why I find that future-proofing thing a bit amusing is let's look at the endings for Ryuki and Den-O. Ryuki ends with a magic reset button where Mirror World never existed. Not exactly how I would have done things personally, but giving the implication that the effects of it still existed in some form. Ryuki is one of those cases with several Kamen Rider endings where it doesn't quite hit the mark. I mean, there's certainly
that was like a common thing though, especially during the Phase 1 era.
I still say that the worst not hitting the mark moment with Kamen Rider around this time would have been Hibiki, but Hibiki had bigger problems than that.
Hibiki's an episode in and of itself. Let's just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. And one that I think has been well tread as far as how much of a mess things were behind the scenes, but. Then we have the ending with Den-O, where after what seems like a big climactic thing with the end of the Imagine, because the time they came from had been cut off, juxtaposed with a rice battle between the owner and the station master, who do not look anything alike.
No, absolutely not. No, they are totally different separate people.
Mm-hmm. No. Wait, what do you mean they're the same? No, you are obviously high on something.
It's just your imagination. But all of a sudden, it turns out that the Taros did not end up turning into dust because memory is time.
Granted, at least they kind of brought that up earlier in the show. But even then, it was a one-off thing.
I probably wouldn't be able to buy it if it weren't for how weak of a villain Kai was.
Oh, his actor got his. I'm just thankful his actor got the justice he deserves with Orb.
Yeah,
goddamn, he can kill it.
Mm-hmm. But you have that, and I know some might say, well, why aren't you giving the same amount of shit to Sanjo regarding how Double ended? Well, because that was properly set up.
Yeah.
The family effectively giving up their side of the equation so that Philip could come back. It's not, in a roundabout way, it's not far removed from the true ending to Final Fantasy X-2, where the reason Tidus was able to come back was the collective memories of the faiths. I know some might yell spoiler at me, but it's been over a decade, so statutes passed.
Yeah.
It's in It's in the legal buying contract of spoilers. After 10 years, spoilers are you can spoil it as much as you want. It's in the rules.
Mm-hmm.
I go the whole 90-day route after it's ended.
Yeah. But but the big reason why Tokuger ended up being a burr up my ass is twofold. One, the whole thing of having aged up kids as the Sentai. And two, one of the biggest contributors to the idiot red problem that was endemic around that time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about wrong.
Still... Indeed, yes. Now, whilst not the absolute worst offender, looking at you leftovers, you'll never live it down, sir.
Oh, no.
Right?
No.
Right
Go back
was
upstairs.
Yeah, get out. No, I don't care how hot it is.
Getting smarter, though. I love his cooking.
That being said, Wright was indeed absolutely the token idiot red. Not just a eccentric red, a full-on idiot. The most obvious example is the Katsudan scene. Where they pull the classic police TV drama trope where an officer offers a bowl of tonkatsu to them if they fess up. And despite the fact that Tokyo's don't even know what the fuck is going on, right? It's like, yeah, we did it! It's like, you fucking idiot!
Why? Because he's hungry. And always so.
It's one of those things that I'm pretty sure somebody thought was funny, but really is just making your lead hero look like an idiot.
And not just an idiot. Here's the thing: the key to a true idiot red is that the universe around them has to bend over backwards to make them right.
Mm-hmm.
To make them correct, I should stress, more than his name.
Yep.
Because he ends up proving the point in the end of the episode through sheer bullshit.
John, bullshit button, if you would, please. If you still have it.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them, so give me a minute. I gotta double check, make sure my buttons are working on this, because, yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and...
I'll take bull for 200.
Wait, hold it. Daily double.
Hey!
Yeah. But when it comes to... the other issue in regards to Tokuger has to do with the main villain. Now, a sympathetic omnicidal bad guy is nothing new for Kobayashi. I mean, we kind of had that with Maki. We somewhat had that with some of the more nihilistic characters in Ryuki, though not to the same extent. But Z barely the bad guyness of Z feels force.
Yeah. The thing is that throughout most of the series after he's introduced, there's this idea that he's starting to realize that maybe being all about the darkness isn't really all it's cracked up to be. Maybe I want something more. And then just out of nowhere, for no fucking reason, he's like, now I understand, and I must truly be the darkness because it is the light. I had to appreciate the light to understand why it must be snuffed out. I'm like, what the fuck?
Especially since up until that point, there seemed to be this idea of him having this growing disdain for his own court. Which, if that's not the perfect setup to have him be given the Roman handshake, if you follow me, by one of his own lieutenants, I don't know what is, and it's not like that hasn't been done before in Sentai.
Yeah, I think most of us were like, let's Schwartz either kill him off or turn his back on him and let him be the BB-8 BBEG.
Mm-hmm.
even then, to an extent, like Schwartz. I wanted him. This is my personal thoughts on it. I was thinking either, okay, you either overthrow and take over, or you also join the good guy. You permanently cross over to the good guys because he was at least honorable about it half the time.
Yeah, have the one big fat lady take over or something. Like she was all in on it. Let her be the bad guy.
I could have easily seen her overthrow, realizing, okay, this kid's not good enough. I'm taking over. And if not the one pompous one, Glitter's mother.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was many routes they could have gone, but no, they had to have Zet come out to keep it. I'm like, no.
And the reason why this ends up leaving a bad taste in my mouth is I guess I'd say the implications of it. This idea of people not growing but being forced to stay in their lane, because that seemed to be the vibe he was trying to go with, trying to grow and become something more than just this embodiment of darkness. But no. Instead, it's no. You have to fulfill your role, even if it's something that you want to escape from. And that kind of thing leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. And I wouldn't be surprised if it left a bad taste in a lot of Japanese fans' mouths, because with all the stuff that's gotten throwbacks over the last few years, you'll notice you don't see a whole lot of that for ToQger.
Yeah.
Like
Even shows around it are getting love. Like freaking Kill Yuger's still getting love to this day.
It just had a cameo. It just had a cameo / crossover 2-parter in King Oger.
Exactly my point. Yeah. It's still getting appreciated to this day. But ToQger? Nobody fucking talk about ToQger.
I think the last time we actually had a prominent thing from them, and even then, I don't even know you can call it that, was Strongest Battle.
I do not count that because that was a grab bag.
Yeah.
That's why I said I don't even think you could count that.
And in all fairness, I'm not surprised that that's the case because I've never been a fan of the suit designs for ToQger.
I mean, you guys in the stream, you guys watching the stream or the VOD can see it yourselves. Look at Tokyo Ichigo over there. The guy in the red, the third character on our screen.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that design. It looks fucking horrible. I get what they're going for. They're going for the train motif. You got the rails for the eye visor. You've got the whole sign for his chest part. But it just clashes so hard.
Like, if I had to keep one or the other, the helmet or the suit, I think they could do something better with the suit. The suit felt like it was just last minute, something quick for the gimmick.
And of course, and even our extras, like say Akira. There's
Wait, what?
Not you.
Other Akira.
There's a whole different set of problems because you effectively have your sixth ranger being a guy with a death wish.
Granted, I'm going to say this: he had a great story. Like he had a great story arc to an extent, a good payoff. And he had a much better suit than the core team.
Oh, that's facts.
Though using a slide-out smartphone as your henshin device, when everyone else was using wrist devices, like, what the fuck?
Like, I get it, at the time, they were trying to make the Sixth Ranger have their own unique morpher, but still. Maybe it was because he actually worked on the road, so he couldn't for the organization that the ToQgers were with, so it was an easier way to contact him. But still.
No.
Yeah, we could go on this all day, folks. Keep this in mind.
I will simply state that with rare exceptions, I've never been a fan of the idea of smartphones as a transformation device.
No. You can have smartphones in your show. Like frickin' 01 did that with theirs. I thought the way they handled it was really good. You know, with the bite with the.
It's being the regular thing, but then it summons a giant version of it to become the bike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was really smart. You can do stuff like that, and that's fine. You
Like
know?
heck,
And hell, even my boy Double had a frickin' flip phone that actually had a secondary function as a frickin' stag beetle.
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah. I think like here's my question then. In terms of using a phone of any kind as a transformation device, so that's the only key one. Which do you think was handled the best, if any?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if there ever has been a case of that. I can't think of a single time where I actually looked at that and go, yeah, that was done well. Some were done better than others, sure, but I wouldn't say there was any that was done well enough to be considered good.
And it's
Like the closest for me personally would be I would think the Magi Ranger, just because it had.
well, that's a cell phone type of thing as compared to a smartphone. That's that's a
Yeah.
different matter entirely.
I was,
With something like Magi Ranger, you have some sort of tactile input. And I know that they're using smartphones for the next series of suits in Paradise Regained, the Fies movie in the works. However, I look at that as a case of it's building on what's already been established. That being, all of the rider gear in Fies was built around household items. Flashlights, a voice recorder, a camera. This is just doing a natural step of that. But when it comes to having a the reason why I'm not a fan of a smartphone as a transformation device is because there's very little you can do visually with it.
Yeah.
And we've had for the longest time of having some sort of tactile impact with how transformation sequences work. When all you're doing is just pressing a button on an app, it doesn't have the same impact. I'd say the reason. I'd say this is something that isn't limited to just this, because Apple Monsters has the same problem on the Digimon end of things.
Ugh. That and the freaking annoying voiceover for the fusion sequences. Oh, or for the Digivolution sequences. Fuck, that was so annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole other story. But yeah, like even with Fies, like yeah, they use the phones for their engines, but then you also have like all the actions they do. You look at Fies himself. You look at Takumi. That flip of the phone, the way he flips the phone open, and then hits the buttons, flips it back down, and slams it onto his belt. There's a lot of tactile impact there. You couldn't do that with a smartphone. And it's going to be interesting to see how they pull that off in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
as the Fies fan here, at least in terms of the design and such, I'm waiting to see clips before I order.
Don't blame ya.
Mm-hmm.
If not, I'm going to tell you this. If I see Mega Road at Momo again and they have Fies stuff, I'm buying his Fies crap.
However,
Rails.
Getting back onto the rails, I'd say this is the reason why that the view of Kobayashi ended up changing with time so quickly because of that blitz, and also because of Tokuger, especially since this was a very unfortunate period of time that we discussed very early on in this podcast, when we were referring to Super Sentai as the Drunken Sailor. Now, is it still the Drunken Sailor now? As far as the last few seasons have gone, I would say no.
Now, we've had eccentric Reds. You know, you look at like the leader of the Don Brothers. He was eccentric at times, very weird, especially when he was transformed. But he was still very intelligent, very competent, very much a leader. You know, from what little I've seen, I've never actually fully watched Don Brothers, to be very clear.
Momotaro was very, I would say, battle happy. He treated every battle like it was a festival and had the enthusiasm you would expect of such a situation.
Yeah,
but
I never got the sense he was an idiot. He was just eccentric. You know, and you look at Kira Major, one I have seen. He was eccentric. He was a bit of a savant, but he was very smart about how he handled things.
It's just he had a unorthodox approach.
Yeah, but they always made sure to make logical sense out of what he was thinking, and it made sense within his character to be the way to think that way. So it never felt idiotic. It just felt eccentric. You can have eccentric Reds. You just need to be careful about going too far and making them an idiot. That was the problem with guys like, you know, Takaharu and Wright and Lucky to an extent. Lucky was the lesser of the evils, but he was still up there.
And I should note I came to a realization. Kira Major also has a better understanding of imagination than Tokuger.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the failings of the reason why I keep saying all these other works have a better understanding of imagination is because the way it was utilized in Tokuger felt very much like it was trying to do this Peter Pan like idea of belief and childhood. The problem was it didn't follow through on that. It just used the word to use it.
Yeah. And it was something we noticed too. Like, we even said that, honestly speaking, we mentioned Akiba Ranger earlier. Akiba Ranger and Tokuger should have flipped their terms, because Tokuger was using more delusions half the time, while Akiba Ranger was using more imagination.
And while one might say that the definition of the two is different, it has more to do with a proper setup and payoff.
Yeah.
And I was also saying, in a way, application, at least from what we saw in the show.
And the bigger thing was trying to do this light and darkness thing, which if you want to do that, Kingdom Hearts is that way.
Out, mouse, out.
We're not playing the darkness drinking game. But the thing is though, I realize that you and I, John, have talked about how there's a kind of genre fusion that's very much a thing in Asian media and in Japan especially. And even with that, while you can certainly mix certain genres and subgenres, when it comes to themes, it's important to pick a lane and largely stick to it, to the point where you can nail down the theme of something in a sentence. The theme of O's, for instance, is desire.
Yeah.
The theme in something like Ryuki, I would say is probably it would be tempted to say a wish, but I'd say survival is a more appropriate one. Not just because that's
survival.
the name of the upgrade, or the fact that the tagline at the end is "Fight or you will not survive," but because so many characters are realizing that they are in a battle for survival. If the monsters don't get them, then the other riders will. And how do you handle that?
How far will you go to survive?
And even though Ren comes off like he's willing to do everything for that, it's very clear that that's just a front.
He feels he has to act that way because that's the only way you get through.
Mm-hmm.
The
I mean, we already saw how not following that will fail. Hi, Imperior.
the I'd say the theme when it comes to double, I'd probably go with Legacy. I realize that's a recurring
absolutely.
thing with Sanjo, but it's even more prevalent in Double than it is in Kyoryuger.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I mean, the whole case involving the Sonozaki family that started with the boss and ended with Shotaro. You do have that particular legacy in how people handle it, whether it be on the side of the heroes. I mean, Shoto trying to live up to the image of the boss as much as he can, or the younger members of the Sonozaki family living up to that legacy. Especially Wakana.
Yeah, it shows the good and the bad of trying to live up to legacy.
Mm-hmm.
How learning from your legacy can make you stronger, but trying to fight it can lead to its own path. But you still have to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Carve your own.
And I contrast that with Tokyuger, where when I'm trying to figure out that major theme that it's building around, it wants to build around the power of imagination, and again that Peter Pan like mindset. But that's conflicting with the importance of the rainbow line and the light and darkness motif it's trying to go for. This motif of absolute good and absolute evil. You effectively have oil and water in that situation.
Yeah.
And when you have as a result of that, when you have those two sides clashing, neither side is able to assert itself. So because
is it sad for me to say that I think even Ninja got that particular thing right?
I don't disagree, but I'd like to hear your case.
The theme for Ninja, I would say, is coming together, because the whole series is about like they're fighting against each other to become the new best ninja, but it's at the end when they finally realize that they are stronger together that they're truly at their best. It's not handled well, and it's still dumb as shit, but when it came to the theme, it at least got that.
Mm-hmm. And
I feel so unclean.
Me too!
How do you think I fucking feel? I'm the one that said it! I'm the one that thought it!
Dude, brush your teeth before you go to bed, bro. God damn.
Hey, as a hey, maybe if we're lucky, we can join Akira, the Ranger, not you, Coops, at a nice, what was it? Oh yeah, public bath. Yeah, I don't know. He can actually teach us how to properly use it.
And Speaking of which, if I'm going to continue this whole thing of theming, um, I would say let the I would actually say the whole light and dark thing was handled more committed in Kira Major.
Well, then again, that's also written by Narihisa Awakawa, who knows what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah, and in fact, when they brought
Or
him
at least
in,
until the last episode.
I had a bit of a laugh because I ended up referencing that line from Thanos. You could not live with your failure, and what did that bring you? Back to me.
Me.
Especially since this was coming off of a series that I tried to like at first. That being
Ryu Soldier.
Yeah, Ryu Soldier. Tried to
You
like
saw who?
it, but it just ended up drifting about. Like it didn't quite know what it wanted to be.
It was just kind of going through the motions, really.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of felt the same way when we watched it. Like, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't quite anything.
Which is odd because you think I would have been all in on it because yes, dinosaurs, but also knights. But the reason why I bring this kind of thing up, and I think this is why we haven't ever since that bit of burnouts, we haven't seen her do much in the way of tokusatsu. It's mostly been anime.
Yeah. With a very specific exception.
Which one are you referring to?
Amazons.
Oh yeah.
We kind of ignored the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think you mean elephant. I think you mean bloodthirsty, bleeding creature in the room.
Now, I think the sentiment that we've had is that Amazon's season 1 was very good and very much maintained its motifs. Season 2 tried to add a bunch of other Amazons and things fell under its own weight, and then Last Judgment happened.
Yeah, here my personal opinion. Season 1 was fantastic. Season 2 was shit. The movie salvaged it. Didn't exactly make it great, but it salvaged it. And that's because 2 of those were Kobayashi's doing. Guess which 2?
Because let me see.
Yep.
Let me see something. So, yeah, a lot of season 1 was written by Kobayashi. Let me see who was writing season 2, which was she was also writing some episodes for that. Though I think she had, I think it was less in her, or rather there was more input from other people with season 2 because with each of the episodes that I find of season 2, she is credited as the writer. But with the movie, that the writing credit goes to Yuya Takahashi, supervised by Kobayashi.
Yeah. I from what I've heard, what actually happened with season 2 was that, while she was still technically credited as the writer for season 2, a certain someone else had his hand in the cookie jar again.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Okay. Get the wind spatula. Someone's hand was in the cookie jar.
Yeah, that's what happened. Is he didn't think anything of it. He's like, oh yeah, you go ahead and do your little Amazon thing. Go ahead and have fun with that. Oh shit, that's actually doing well. Well, excuse me, I'd like to get in on this, please.
No, Ben. I'm smacking with the spoon. Why is your hand still in the cookie jar?
Mine.
Oh,
No, we're not going to have this be like another Hibiki.
and I think again the reason why I say that adding more writers ended up making things collapse under their own weight is because of the fact that season 1 of Amazons was very, very confined, very controlled. It was for the two big focuses, I would say, and in fact, you could probably summarize a good chunk of season 1 as the rise of Haruka and the fall of Jin. I mean, yeah, Sigma's there too, but that is the big focus that I see with it. You know, Jin going into being more of a monster, while Haruka is essentially a monster trying to be more humanoid. Especially when you look at how Haruka would fight as Amazon early on versus later. And of course, there was also the design of Jin having more and more scars and eventually going completely blind. That end, I'd say by the end of season 1, he had just completely run out of fucks to give.
Yeah.
Which was visually demonstrated by how completely destroyed his body looked. And within that particular setup, it's kind of funny that you mention her wanting to veer away from heroic motifs, because Amazon's is a very strong reminder that there's always been a very strong horror undertone with within very early Kamen Rider and to an extent even why is his name escaping me at the moment?
Are you talking about the creator of Kamen Rider,
Yeah,
Ishinomori?
I don't know why his name slipped by me, but you look at a lot of Ishinomori's work, especially his manga, and there's very much a horror undertone with it.
Oh yeah.
Would it surprise you at all if I say that he was good friends with Go Nagai?
Nope.
No.
I'd be more shocked if he wasn't.
Nope.
Did he go as far as Go Nagai in some of his works? No, but the DNA is still very much present. I wonder if he was also friends with Ishikawa. You know, the other half of the creation of Getter. Because
Wouldn't surprise me.
yeah, it's one. I don't have any proof of that. It's just a gut instinct thing. But the reason why I find it kind of amusing is because I'd say Haruka was a case of somebody who is trying to make the best out of the worst situation that he's in. I think which is why it's apropos that the primitive form of Amazon Omega is some of the first moments you see of it is it trying to get out of a cage. Because for whatever reason I end up being reminded of the original telling of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which we now know thanks to Hot Ones. Apparently, Mick Foley was also taking notes from that story. Obvious in hindsight. Although Foley did better than I figured a New Yorker could do with that kind of hot sauce.
I'll have to go back and watch that one now.
Um, he did. Then again, he did spend a bit of time working in Texas, so you know how that is.
Plus, it's Mick Foley. This guy puts himself through so much pain. Hot sauce is probably nothing to him.
Mm-hmm. But
wait. Like, was let's face it, it's Mick Foley, aka the biggest inspiration for Darby Allin. Let's face it.
That's Jeff Hardy.
Now, keep in mind, Darby was a skater before he was a wrestler, so putting himself through unimaginable amounts of pain, he didn't need to reference Mick Foley for that.
Fair, but let's look at all the crazy matches he's done since.
Have you seen what skaters go through?
I left after almost getting a concussion.
Most skateboarders have a tendency to slip on a bar and get hit right in the nuts.
Well, I'm familiar with that. That's just entry level. I'm talking about some of the crazier shit.
I'm just making a point here. Moving on.
Yeah, moving right along. I would say the most recent thing that I remember hearing regarding Kobayashi was that she was working on a manga called Danzai Lock, with illustrations by Saki Nonoyama, and that's going to be on the Comic Days website for Kodansha. Which leads me to believe that I think she's understood that she ended up biting off more than she could chew with that sheer amount of high profile writing that she was involved in over the span of just a few years. Because keep in mind that period of blitzing starts from 2008 all the way to 2022. And yes, there's Kashibe Rohan, but again, that's an adaptation, and one where you've got somebody who's going to be hands-on. Because Araki is very peculiar about the look of things with his work.
Yeah, I'd say the true blitz period ended around 2000. I'd say 2017 is where it finally stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was working on Kakegurui and Amazons at the same time. But after that, she kind of slowed the fuck down.
Yeah, because after that there's the JoJo stuff. There was a second season of Kakegurui and Dororo, as I mentioned before.
Such a good anime.
And Dororo is based on a Tezuka manga.
Yeah, so she's kind of been slowing down, focusing more on adaptations, which are much easier. You could see someone working on multiple adaptations at the same time, but doing full-on original work, that takes a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Plus, this isn't the first time that Dororo has been adapted into an anime. It was adapted into one in the late 60s. So there's things to build upon. You're not doing all. You're still doing most of the work, but you're not doing all of it. But I'd say is when it comes to adaptation, there's not going to be too much of an issue because, fortunately, the adaptation issue that we have here in the States is not something you can get away with in Japan. You know, you and I have talked about this, John, of people trying to put their spin on adapting a popular IP.
Yeah.
And end up turning that IP into a glorified fanfic. Netflix, I'm looking at you. Yeah, you've been doing good with One Piece right now, but that does not excuse your past sins.
Hey, you want a better example? Hi, Velma, how you doing?
Yeah. I was trying to stay away from that call out.
I will simply say that it is very telling that they did that they ended up doing a race swap with that character that just happens to look like the showrunner. Total coincidence, I'm certain.
Yeah, sure.
Is it also something where it's like, oh look, it's the trend that has been going on right now of, oh look, a character with red or ginger hair. Let's do what they did with Velma.
I think in this case it was somebody trying to self insert, especially given how little of Velma has to do with anything, to the point where Springjacked is more authentic. You know, a fan-made project that a certain voice actors tried to get pissy about because he happened to use AI voices for a few characters. Because because the guy who did it was a one-man operation and he's a broke-ass college student. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is that whenever somebody's done that whole veering off from the source material, the only time you can really get away with it is when you run out. When it comes to anime, there's been a few cases where the manga and the anime are very different from each other, and we've talked about it, but it's never been the same level of egregious. As opposed to, say, I don't know, let's use Netflix Witcher, or if I want to really nail the point home, and that pun is intentional, Castlevania Nocturne. Which, if you want details on why I say that, go watch the video that Rabbit and I did, the second collab that I've done with him, and dealt with his puns all the way. See, I don't need to have a big book of dad jokes. It comes to me.
Between me and Rabbit, yeah.
Between or just bad jokes, period, between you, Rabbit, and Zan.
With Zan, he's just trying to break you. Because he's already broken himself, so he wants some amusement as people join him on the craziness.
I don't know about that. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best one.
You're not wrong.
But I'm trying to think of the most blatant I'm trying to think of the most blatant example of a anime adaptation doing that kind of egregious changing. The big one that comes to mind is like Rosario the Vampire, where it just pulls a grab bag of different stories from different arcs from the manga.
To an extent, I would say certain parts of Negima in that franchise.
But the key thing is with all of this is that there's always a big asterisk. Like it's always an instance of trying to be relatively close to source material, but some people just not quite getting the point across. And when it came to one other thing I should note that was brought to my attention at the last minute. Supposedly, Kobayashi had said before taking on Ryuki that she had never seen a Kamen Rider series beforehand. Which some people have used as a negative. I can't really go with that because, well, we've had people, because, well, Harv Bennett exists. He hadn't seen anything with Star Trek before Wrath of Khan. Of course, the difference is he did a shitload of research. I'd also bring up the showrunner for RPM. Now, he didn't watch every season of Power Rangers that came before RPM, but he watched a lot of it to get the idea for his pitch, and then he saw the stock footage he was going to be using and had a panic moment. One which I'm pretty sure all of us would have loved to be a fly on the wall for.
Oh, absolutely.
Let flash to us in another universe as we are all flies on the wall. Meow. Anyone got any food for this?
Oh, but do I do think that as long as she's adapting, she'll be fine. I would be utterly shocked if she ends up picking up a tokusatsu gig in the future, because it does seem like these days adapting anime or doing manga seems to be her thing.
And that's totally fine with me. I mean, that's what she's good at.
Mm-mm. Oh, and I think this idea of trying to dismantle the idea of heroism was a doomed endeavor. Much in the same way as whenever somebody comes into an IP and wants to change something that's vital to it, the more that you try and do that, the more either the fan base or just the people involved with working with it for that long of time are going to resist, and that's a vicious cycle where you end up trying harder and you get a stronger response otherwise. So and I'd like to think that she's started to realize that. Because we've seen this from certain comic book writers of wanting to change the concept of the characters that they're working with to better suit their own beliefs or what have you, and it always ends up failing. Hell, we had one more recently with the writer of the upcoming Alan Scott Green Lantern comic, where he was begging people to buy his book to own the phobes, which is the complete wrong way to sell anyone on anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not putting her in that same caliber, but this idea of trying to change something that's been established for your own belief system is a recipe for death. Not disaster, just death. Especially since after you've done that and you've gone on to work on other things, everybody else has to pick up the pieces.
Yep.
But as long as the understanding that you can't try and swim upriver is established, I think she'll do fine. And I'd say that's as good of a cutoff point as any. Even if something that you're working on you may not be a fan of, you at the end of the day are still a steward for that particular property, and you have to treat it appropriately. This was something that Peter Jackson had stated on multiple occasions regarding the Lord of the Rings movies. He saw him and his crew as stewards of Tolkien's work, and that it was their job to present it as best as they could. Now, of course, to some of the purists, he screwed it up, but the purists can go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
Mostly because a lot of them seem to have this idea that you could just adapt word for word the original books, which... Could you do that? Yes. Would it be a good idea? Fuck no. We learned that lesson with Psycho.
What are you talking about? Tolkien. These Tolkien lovers don't watch anything but Tolkien, or read anything but Tolkien, I should say.
That's the problem. They only read. As I've mentioned before, a book and a screenplay are apples and oranges to each other. But with that coda in mind, that's going to do it for this particular episode. I do have a few things that I've got planned for the coming week. Tuesday I will be interviewing L.R. Knight on his particular project, which is a mix of RPG and wargame. So that'll be fun to talk about. Thursday, it's back to covering Brass and Steel with Monarch. We're going to be covering advantages and disadvantages in that book. So far, Brass and Steel has been pretty good. Friday, the Crimson Cavalier vocation for Planetbound is going to get covered with me and Zan. And Saturday, I will be on the returning Adventures of the Monk and Monarch. We're going to be talking about horror in anime, which is going to be harder than most people think because there's not exactly the equivalent of a slasher flick in anime. At least not one that I've found yet.
I was at panel for this weekend. I wish you luck.
At the very least, it gives me an excuse to talk about Monster.
Oh, that's a classic. A great psychological dive.
Yeah, and next Sunday we will be returning to the wonderful world of GeekWatch. And well, that one's going to be another. I can guarantee you this: I will not be three-peating these dissections of writers. That's not to say I'm going to stop doing that. It's just we're not going to be doing that for a while.
All you turkey lovers, put it away. It's not going to happen. It's not on the bingo card.
Turkey's not till next month, and I'm still banned from the kitchen.
I was trying to make a bowling reference.
Yeah, and I am commandeering that reference.
Fair enough.
But that is going to do it for this week. I hope to see you all in the coming days for what we've got planned, especially since I am going to start writing that review of Traveler starting tomorrow. Don't expect the review proper for a while though, because that's going to be a lengthy one.
Place your bets, folks. Your winner gets no prize.
So until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody, and join the watch.